The sports world during the 70s and early 80s was, to put it nicely, dysfunctional, more specifically for team-oriented sports. In the world of basketball, it was unarguably, no question, at historically all-time lows. And I'm talking about purgatory level lows. With decrease in viewership, ownership difficulties, politics being mixed in, and lack of financial stability, things were rough to say the least, and got so bad that the NBA pulled off their weird version of the NFL-AFL merger in the football world, when they proceeded to merge with the now defunct American Basketball Association, who folded due to bankruptcy. It was going to take a miracle if the league wanted to clean up their brand and its image. Even though a new leadership regime would arrive in '84 to help set the foundation for the league to become what it is today, there were still some problems that made the transition difficult. And one of those main problems was, to put it bluntly, drugs. Hardcore drugs. Heavy drug use plagued the NBA during that time and was one of the bad factors that contributed to the negative effects that I mentioned earlier and about its downfall. It affected the careers of some of the league's talented stars who should have gone down as all-time greats, like Spencer Haywood, David Thompson, Michael Ray Richardson, and surprisingly, believe it or not, Bernard King. And they will become the victims of the bad activity in some way or some form or some shape. But they are not the biggest nor most tragic victims. That goes to an individual who never even stepped foot on an NBA court to even play in an NBA game. I know, make it make sense, right? But let me put it into context for you. This man was so immensely talented and could have been a legit and all-time great off of just potential alone, that the legendary Red Auerbach of the iconic Celtics, who, mind you, is fresh off of winning a second chip in 2 years, traded up with the hope of drafting him as their future. Want more? Even Larry Bird, who was starting to suffer injuries in the latter part of the 80s, said he would have retired way earlier, knowing that the squad was in good hands with this.
Bias that year either, which nobody ever factors in when they talk about that era.
Yeah.
If Len Bias sticks around, how much longer do you play, and how much healthier are you?
I would have left in '88.
What do you mean?
I would have retired in '88.
That's would have been it?
Yeah. You know, I played against Len Bias when he was a sophomore in college, and he was incredible.
But unfortunately, plans never fully blossomed, and all because of one tragic mistake on a day in the summer of 1986 that will change the course of basketball history as we know it. Here's the story of Leonard Kevin Bias, Len Bias. Bright light to dark tragedy overnight. Born and raised in the state of Maryland, Bias was literally LeBron of the 1980s. At 6'8", 220 pounds of pure muscular strength, with a vertical leap of either 40 or more inches, he was a freak of nature, a physical, athletic specimen who had a game that was one of a kind. Explosive, could jump out the gym, had a silky smooth shot, could handle the ball for someone of his stature, and defend most positions. Her skill set was phenomenal, along with playing with an aggression that you don't see from most. He blended grace with power beautifully, a rare combination. Bias was undoubtedly, no question, a generational, once-in-a-lifetime talent that you couldn't miss out on as an NBA team. But it wasn't always like this. Playing for the legendary head coach, Lefty Driesell, at the University of Maryland as a terrapin, Bias entered his freshman year as a raw talent with all the skills that just needed to be polished. Everyone knew he could be great, but it was just a matter of when and how he would put it all together and just blossom. And from that point forward, it was up, as Len started to show the eyes of the ones watching him closely that he possessed one of the greatest work ethics ever for an athlete. He hit the gym in the weight room, during a time where weightlifting for basketball was still in question, looking to hone his skills and sculpt his body. As year by year, Ledden became better, increasing his averages across the board and displaying his highly entertaining skill set for the nation to see as he got more opportunities. And by the end of his senior season as a Terrapin, he built up a resume and left a legacy that left him as not just one of the greatest players in the school's history, but also in the school's conference and in college basketball history in general. Two-time consensus All-American, ACC Athlete of the Year, Tournament MVP in '84, two-time first-team All-ACC, and two-time ACC Player of the Year. Bias established himself as a polished, can't-miss, once-in-a-lifetime prospect that NBA teams and their scouts marveled at and were willing to do anything to gain the prized possession. And the 1986 draft was the perfect opportunity to do just that. As great as he was, Bias was not the consensus first overall pick. And if you don't know the league standards of that time, you needed a big to construct your team around. And there was a highly talented, skilled big from out of the University of North Carolina that undoubtedly was going to be the first, by the name of Brad Daugherty. And with the Cavaliers owning that first pick, they did just that. But Bias was most definitely going to be gone with that second pick. And let's just say he would be drafted into the greatest situation that any ball player of that time will only dream for. The Boston Celtics were one of the league's two premier juggernaut teams. Led by all-world skilled talent Larry Bird, the C's were coming off their second glorious victory on the big stage, being there for the third consecutive time in a row, were arguably the greatest team ever in NBA history. And in 1984, their legendary staple for the franchise, Red Auerbach, made a deal that sent Gerald Henderson, the team's good piece in the guard rotation, to Seattle, acquiring the rights to the Supersonics draft pick in '86. And there you have it. With that second pick, Bias was chosen by the Celtics, looking to become one of the game's all-time greats, looking to battle it out for the title as the league's future and golden guy to be on top of the throne against another young established superstar in the league already by the name of Michael Jordan, a familiar foe who he faced off against in college before and was often compared to, where some even said that Bias was even better than him. And he was drafted into the perfect situation, being the potential successor, looking to carry on the dominating legacy of one of the greatest franchises in sports history, being the foundation to generational wealth for his family. Just overall a celebratory moment indeed, no question. But all of that will change in a matter of just 48 hours. On June 19th, 1986, 2 days after being drafted, Bias wanted to celebrate his recent achievement of success with his college teammates. Within the confines of the dormitory room at the wee hours of 3 a.m., Brian Tribble, Terry Long, and David Gregg decided to indulge into a dangerous activity as a means of having fun and celebrating: cocaine. And Bias, who never did any drug before, nor even had a thought to participate in that type of behavior, proceeded to do something that will unfortunately throw not just his future, but literally his whole life away. He suffers a seizure, loses consciousness, stops breathing, and his heart stops. And despite all the attempts to bring him back to life, Bias will pass away at the extremely young age of 22 due to cardiac arrhythmia. His death shocked the whole entire nation and sent a message to not just the NBA, but the whole world about the horrors of this dangerous drug. The league became more stricter with their anti-drug policies from that point on. And the U.S. House of Representatives created the anti-drug abuse law based around bias to enforce war against drugs and trying to combat it. Len Bias's life is a cautionary tale. A guy gifted by the higher powers to be an all-time great and to set an example for what hard work, dedication, and doing the right thing could take you far in achieving your dreams. But all because of one unfortunate, tragic mistake. He sets an example in a different way, in a different aspect, becoming the poster child to the dangers and the horrors of drug use and how it could negatively affect your life in many aspects. Rest in paradise, Mr. Bias.